In a minute now, House Republicans will vote on a budget blueprint to jumpstart the reconciliation process, teeing up the chamber to begin work on passing President Trump's agenda.
The House is working on one big bill as Speaker Johnson looks to fend off opposition from the fiscal hawks in the GOP.
Democrats, on the other hand, are doing what they do best, whining, complaining, and singing that same old song.
Everything we care about is under assault. The economy is under assault. The safety net is under assault. Our very way of life as a country is under assault. Democracy itself is under assault. This is not politics as usual. It's a matter of life and death. And so we will stand with the American people.
Joining us now is Wisconsin Senator and Senate Budget Committee member Ron Johnson. Senator, great to have you with us. Obviously a big night. You've got the vote potentially in the House. It's on shaky ground. You've got some members in the House who don't want to support the one big beautiful bill. You've got a different track in the Senate. Talk about how you think this process is going to play out, and particularly when it comes to the tax cuts, the tax extensions that I think a lot of Americans and a lot of businesses are maybe getting just a little bit worried about right now.
Well, first of all, I just have to comment on Minority Leader's Jeffrey's comment there. I mean, this is the standard scaremongering we've heard of Democrats that have mortgaged our children's future. So, from my standpoint, this should all be about spending. In 2019, we spent $4.4 trillion in total. This year, we're on track to spend $7.3 trillion. That's a 61% increase. I've proposed a number of pre-pandemic spending options. The highest would be $6.5 trillion. Again, that fully increases a pre-pandemic baseline by Biden's inflation, 6.5 versus 7.3. There's no justification for spending a dime over 6.5, and that's not starving anybody. That's not giving tax breaks to anybody. That's just laying in a pre-pandemic baseline. I've used the analogy, there's no family that I know, if they had an illness, had to borrow $50,000 to pay for medical bills. If that family member gets well, they don't keep borrowing $50,000 and spend that level. That's exactly what we've done. We've gone from 4.4, averaged 6.5 over the last 5 years. Now we're at 7.3. We have to bring spending under control. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem.
Yep, Medicaid spending is up 60% from pre-pandemic levels, 60%. And if you roll back and go put in work requirements and you go back to the accounting that the states were forced to use, you save about $1.5 trillion over 10 years. It's just outrageous. I want to get your take on this because the Senate has not yet moved on extending President Trump's tax cuts. But there was a report that yesterday we had Senator Steve Daines and Mike Crapo, who's the finance chair, meeting with the president along with Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Scott Bessent of Treasury joining on the phone and proposing making the 2017 tax cuts permanent, something the House is not doing. They have only $4.5 trillion to work with for the tax cuts. Is that something that is really going to be the dividing line? And is it something the Senate can do, make President Trump's tax cuts permanent, Senator?
Yeah, this is actually pretty simple. I've actually proposed a three-step reconciliation process. So we've already passed a budget in the Senate that uses current policy. So if you extend the current tax code, it doesn't even score. My proposal would be first provide funding for the border defense, come back as soon as that's done, extend the current tax code. As awful and complex as it is, that would immediately take an automatic tax increase off the table. Then you come back and you do the hard work, the very difficult, the very complex work of simplifying and rationalizing our tax code and reducing spending to a reasonable pre-pandemic level. That's going to take some time. So I appreciate what the House is trying to do here. This is just a blueprint. Passing a big, massive, beautiful bill is complex. It's going to be very difficult. Let's at least take the tax increase off the table by just using current policy, extend the current complex tax code, get that off the table, and then let's come back and do the hard work. That will take months, not weeks.
I want to ask you about this, Senator. You're a member of the Make America Healthy Again caucus. And interesting, you're saying that as your first action as chair of the permanent subcommittee on investigations, you're going to probe corrupt science. I'm fascinated by what that's going to look like. Tell us more.
Well, you know, Eisenhower warned us about this. When federal government funds science, you're going to end up with a scientific and technological elite that drives public policy that literally corrupts science. When you pay for a study, you get the results you want. So we've seen that across the board. You've seen scientific journals having to retract 11,000 studies. You have researchers that cannot replicate other researchers' work. We have Chinese coming in and buying up journals. Science has been corrupted. Obviously, these federal health agencies have been captured by the large pharmaceutical companies, as well as, you know, big ag, big food processing have captured their regulatory agencies as well. So it's a corrupt process. This is not going to be an easy task, but it starts with transparencies in the agencies. That's why I'm so glad that Bobby Kennedy has committed himself to radical transparency out of the health agencies, so we can actually get, for example, the analysis of all their safety surveillance system products, which they have not turned over to me in a couple of years. So it starts with radical transparency.
Senator, we want to get your reaction to your governor, the governor of your state, Tony Evers, doubling down on his move to replace gendered language in the new state budget proposal, changing words like mother to inseminated person. Father changes to natural parent. And this is how he reacted to the backlash.
What the Republicans say is a lie. You know, so of course I'm pretty PO'd about that. And so I didn't know that Republicans were against IVF, but apparently they are, because that is what that's about.
Senator, your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, when you denigrate a beautiful term like mother and try and substitute inseminated person, first of all, that is just gross. It is gross. It's also insane. So I don't know what he's saying we're lying about. It's his budget. He's the one that is trying to substitute the word mother for, or substitute inseminated person for a beautiful term called mother. There's no justification for it.
Yeah, it is gross and insane, Senator. Thank you for being with us today. Lots of great stuff on science and taxes, all of it. We appreciate your time.